and welcome to the Progress Pondcast. It is episode 21, or if you want to look at it a different way, season 2, episode 2. We are absolutely delighted to bring you today a guest appearance by Blue Gal and Drift Class from the Professional Left podcast, which many of you might not know is what inspired us to get started on this whole thing. We've been listeners for quite some time, especially Marty. So without further ado, let's get into it with Drift Glass and Blue Gal from the Professional Left, podcasting from the cornfields of, I think it's Indiana. Tell us about yourselves. No, I got the wrong state.
Illinois.
Yes.
Illinois.
Yeah.
It's one of those corn states.
Illinois.
We're the one with the good governor.
I was going to say the one with the good governor.
The good governor and the good corn. People corn, not cow corn. Yes, yes.
Oh, does Indiana corn suck? Is it all cow corn?
Only Illinois corn is worth eating. I will die on that hill.
What about Massachusetts? Sweet corn out of Western Mass. Have you had that?
Oh, no.
Jersey corn?
Well, and I lived in Massachusetts for 14 years, so I don't remember
corn?
the corn. It's been a long time since I've eaten Massachusetts corn. No idea.
Jersey corn. Too many bodies buried under there. So
yes. That's what makes it delicious.
Fertilized with Jimmy Hoffa.
And lest you think we're kidding, I can walk from our front door, I don't know, half a mile, be in the middle of a cornfield.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
walk a mile the other direction, I'm at Lincoln's tomb. So
right. That's where we're at. Yeah.
Lincoln must be spinning in his grave right now, the way his Republican.
That's the sound you hear.
Pinwheel Abe. Yep.
We have our own cornfields out here, but I don't know if anyone saw, there was this article in the Atlantic this week. Who is the person who wrote that, Brendan?
Oh, I don't know. Who's that guy at the Atlantic?
David Brooks.
That was
David Brooks.
Is that the one about the Apostolic Church? The one that I basically stopped reading after 2 minutes because I got the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah. It's about this converted barn out in Lancaster County and Amish County where all of these denominationists gather and worship Trump and plot the holy war. Oh. So yeah, we got our own cornfields going on. It's a little creepy.
Mm-hmm.
More than a little creepy, if you ask me.
A little, yeah.
Yeah, we've got plenty of those people around here. There's currently a secession amendment floating around about leaving the state, forming their own state because they don't like Chicago because it's full of money and prosperity and brown people. So can't have that.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you really want to be Kentucky? You really? Because that's basically it. You cut yourself loose from the engine of prosperity and dynamism in the Midwest, and okay, great.
Yeah,
you're not going to get 2 senators out of it, though. Sorry, we're holding out for that.
Yeah, they do this everywhere. Colorado, they all want to secede. So,
but now there's a Calexit movement that may actually wind up on the ballot in California.
Yeah.
Because California is so angry with how Trump has treated the fire situation.
No, who can blame them?
These folks need to be aware that, Social Security and Medicare goes out the window. Now, California is probably the best state to weather removal of Medicare because they've really got a healthcare plan for Californians out there that's good to go. But how much does it depend on federal funding? I'm not sure.
The Pentagon for sure.
You can't secede. You can't secede from the union and expect,
the checks to keep coming.
Hi, everyone. It's Brendan from the Progress Pondcast. It takes a lot to put out our program. It takes up to about 4 hours of editing on my end just to get it out within a few hours of recording. And we could really use your support. The best way to do that is to find us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/ProgressPodcast. You can set up a monthly subscription there for as little as $5 a month. We really appreciate our listeners, so thanks a lot for helping to keep us afloat.
I think that's the thing that has happened this week, is everybody realized when Trump tried to freeze spending, all of a sudden everybody realized, but that dollar's mine.
Has the federal has Elon Musk got people locked out of the of federal HR. That was the last thing I saw when I went to bed
The
last
last
night.
thing I saw was he had plugged into the Social Security payment system.
Oh, good,
Yeah.
good.
And
That's
the
great. That's
second
great.
Treasury.
the
Yeah.
second the second in command there resigned yesterday
I saw
because
that.
he didn't want that to happen.
The guy's been there like
So
30 years.
five
Yeah.
alarm fire.
Yeah.
Five
Yeah.
alarm fire. Yeah.
Yep.
I think one of my I've been telling Marty that I'm a weed smoker
Mhm.
and it's not legal here in Pennsylvania, so I got to go across the river where it's into New Jersey where it's significantly more expensive. They can't
Well,
fire me from my job for saying this, and nobody at my job listens anyway. So anyway, but so I was going to a guy here in Pennsylvania in Philadelphia that had weed at 1980s 1980s prices,
Wow.
yeah.
21st century weed with for $25. And he slowly but surely, let it be known to me that he was planning on voting for Trump. This is a guy who survived fourth-stage prostate cancer because of his benefits from the Affordable Care Act. He's a
Yeah.
machine shop worker, or
Mm-hmm.
was a machine shop worker. He's in his late 60s, so he's on the Social Security. He's on the Affordable Care Act or some kind of benefit for people who don't have a lot of money, for
Mm-hmm.
Medicaid.
Medicaid.
And
Yeah.
and he voted for this asshole.
Yeah.
And I basically was like, yeah, I'm not doing business with you anymore because I'm not
Yeah.
going to give my
Yeah.
money. I mean, nice
Yep.
guy, but and had long discussions with this guy over this, that, why I'm not a Trump supporter. My kid is transgender,
Yep.
health issues, why he shouldn't support Trump, health issues, Social Security. He's like, no, no, I'm buying what he says. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? And now he got what he wanted.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm wondering if he's one of these people that I've been reading about that, the leopards ate their face party people
Right.
who are like, wait a minute, my face? Wait. And okay, buddy, I'm screwed,
We
but
we
you're just
tried
as
to warn
screwed.
you. We
Yep.
tried to warn you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's the thing. That's the thing about I think what we all have in common because we're all original OG progressive blogosphere people,
Hell yeah.
and so that's 20 years now. We've been warning about the Republican Party and the direction that they're headed.
Often I feel like
And
Judy Miller.
Yeah.
I feel like Judy Miller, not for passing along stovepipe lies about weapons of mass destruction, but because I look at what's going on here and that one quote that she said, which was wrong in her context, but it keeps going through my mind. We were fucking right.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Now Judy Miller was wrong, but we were fucking right.
And it would have
yeah,
been 30 years, not just 20, if blogging had been around in the 90s, frankly,
Yeah.
because
yeah,
we were
In
having,
the 70s.
yeah, we were having these discussions. I mean, I was
Yeah.
on the board of the, by the way, Barack Obama, you're welcome. Um, I was on the board of the IVI IPO in Illinois, in Chicago, the Independent Voters of Illinois, and we vetted a young state senator named Barack Obama to go on to lose his congressional race and then win the Senate race. But we were having these discussions about the direction, the trajectory of the Republican Party, what Newt Gingrich was doing to politics, what Rush Limbaugh was doing to politics. There were Rush rooms in Chicago where the boys who were on the trading floor would go to lunch and smoke cigars and listen to Rush Limbaugh over lunch. And we were having these
Ugh.
discussions in the 90s
Mm-hmm.
and saying, do you understand you're unleashing a force you will never be able to control that is out to wreck this country? And it's going to all be based on lies, and it's all going to fall apart. It's going to hurt everybody you know. It's like, shut up, crazy liberal. So
yeah.
it's, this is a long conversation, and it's been going on for a long time. And my arms are tired. My thumb hurts. I've been typing a lot. My hands are kind of sore, but every day it proves us to be correct, and every day they more and more don't want to hear from people who were right during the before time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the things I've always admired about you is you never forget anything, and you can bring receipts from Newt Gingrich's era.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I forget everything.
I got to jump in, Fran. I got to say, I love the no fair remembering stuff parts. And I
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
love the way that you introduce it specifically. We're like, no fair remembering
No
stuff.
fair
It's so
bring
good.
stuff. Yep. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Well, sitting like 5 feet from me right now is the original Time magazine with our national nightmare time of healing with Gerald Ford's picture on it. That's going to come into a podcast pretty soon. And I dug out John Dean talking about the authoritarians and
His
in his
book.
book from 2005 or six, I think. And there's video of that, and I've got that teed up and ready to go. But yeah, it really is about just this is a war for memory. This is a war about remembering what happened and how we got here. And
Yep.
we are currently not doing great. But I keep reminding people who are weeping. Many of our allies, our Never Trump allies, who just like, voters are idiots, voters are fools, America's decadent and stupid. I said, yeah, well, 75 million of us understood the assignment, and we
Right.
showed up, and we show up every election. So it's not the voters, it's not the Congress, it's Republican voters and centrist and undecided voters. It's the Republicans in Congress. And every time you don't say that, you're
Yep.
telling me a lot about what you are really in this for.
But Driftglass, in
Yes.
2015, this whole thing started.
I know. Man, I get more. Well, we both get more email from people who are like, "Yep, spotted it." Nicole Wallace, bless her heart. There's a lot of people who like Nicole Wallace, and she had a lot going for her. But every time she talks about the crisis, it all began in 2016.
Yeah, no.
Yep.
These last 9 years, man, these last 8 years, these last 9 years, and I knew it was going to get bad when she compressed the Bush administration into one word, and it was my former boss, whatever you thought of him.
Well,
That
yeah, I
was
was
it.
gonna. I was
That
just
was
about
it.
to say no. I was just about to say no fair remembering stuff. But weren't you a speechwriter for that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For that guy?
Right.
What?
I have a really hard time forgiving.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah, you
try
do.
I try to welcome people into the never Trump world, but
Yeah.
I am very resistant to, if you were wrong about Iraq, if
Yeah.
you were freaking out about Monica Lewinsky,
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't have time for you really.
I follow George Conway on Blue Sky,
He's
and I
another.
follow a bunch of Never Trumpers, to be honest, because every once in a while they have something interesting to say, and they do have insights into that group of people, both Never Trump those groups of people,
Yeah.
both Never Trumpers and MAGA, because they're of
Yeah.
that culture. But like when I see George Conway, every once in a while he gets off some real funny lines, man. That guy's got some he's got a good sense of humor, and he's good at with a zinger. But every time I see that dude, I'm just like, you're the one that pushed Monica Lewinsky. This was all your baby, dude. And every once in a while, I'll remind him, you ever wish you made some different choices back in like 1995?
Yep.
Maybe,
Yep.
maybe just a little bit.
Mhm. Well,
But the
Same with Bill-
insulation in
same
his
with-
mansion is paid for with that Monica Lewinsky money.
that's right.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
you
Fuck
know.
yeah. Yeah.
And then there's
Well-
his daughter who's like freaking out about the parenting job that they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's scary stuff. Yeah, I the whole thing, whether it's Bill Kristol, I mean, Jennifer Rubin, there's so many of them.
Ruben, I've actually forgiven a bit. She's actually, and I think I mentioned this to you. There was one thing that she did that made me willing to give her a chance that I have not given the other ones. And that is, I saw her on Twitter right after 2016, and she was like, I am never going to hate Democrats again. I will never hate them again. I should have at least listened a little bit. And from now on, even when I disagree, I'm going to be respectfully disagree and try to take into consideration what they're saying, but no more automatic hate for me. She actually came out and said that. I'm too lazy to go look for the tweet, and I'm not on on Twitter anymore anyway.
Right.
But she
right.
specifically said that, and I was like, I'll see.
Okay.
That said, I trust her about as far as I can throw her. And, when she
Right.
makes
Yeah.
speculations, I'm like, yeah, well, you made similar claims when Mitt Romney was running. And,
Right.
now you're
Right.
making the same
Absolutely.
kind of bloviating claims for the side you're on now.
See,
Well,
that's go ahead.
The disappearance of the entire Obama experiment from public memory. Like, we tried all this, right? We tried this. We tried giving them what they wanted. We tried extending olive branches. We tried working with them. We got obstruction. We got blocking. We got sabotage. We got filibustering your own bills. And then every time Obama tries to govern with around that obstruction, it's, oh, he's a czar. He's a tyrant. He's a monster. And like,
Right.
dude, and the person who didn't learn the lesson was Barack Obama.
Yep.
And that's what drove me crazy. It's like, dude, you're from Chicago. you remember maybe the experience with Harold Washington, which exactly parallels your problem. First black mayor of Chicago. What happens first black mayor of Chicago? More than half the city council suddenly becomes Republican. Suddenly backs the Republican candidate and blocks everything Washington tries to do because he's black.
Because he's black.
Period. Period, full stop.
Yep.
And that was our council wars. I'm like, you got to understand, man, these people hate you. And no matter how many times you extend an olive branch, he went to their retreat. He went to their retreat in Baltimore for healthcare and walked in the door, and they blew him away because they invited him because he invited everybody, but they were not expecting him to show up. And he stayed there for an hour and a half, answering every question, taking down every objection, saying, look, if you want to make your own healthcare plan, great. It all it has to do is meet these three criteria. Tort reform is not going to fix it. And Paul Ryan, you know that. But he answered every question, and he calmly, without notes, did everything you would ever want someone to do, walked out of the room, and it was like, oh, we're never going to let that shit happen again.
Yeah.
That made us look really bad. But all of that has been memory hold. All of it is gone. No, we did this experiment already. We ran the experiment already. It doesn't fucking work.
And you still see.
You know what I remember about that meeting is one of the things he said was, "Look, you are not going to be able to work with me if you demonize me."
Right.
And then they walked out of the meeting and just demonized the hell out of him.
Hey guys, Brendan coming at you one more time. Just a reminder, please support our work on Patreon, www.patreon.com/progresspodcast. And as always, please like, follow, subscribe, and share with your friends and family on social media, including Blue Sky.
And it was like, well, that.
And he also insisted on math.
Right.
Well, that's a problem.
You Obama. Damn you.
Yeah.
And the modern example of that, this is one that I just can't get around. This is a corner I cannot turn, which is Liz Cheney.
Mm-hmm.
Liz Cheney was calling, and it's still up at the Congressional Republican YouTube channel. What she said is still there. She was, number 3 in the party at the time, number 3 in Congress at the time. She was a person of great power. And she stood in front of a podium, I'm sure you all know this, and said, Democrats murder babies. They murder babies outside the womb. That's how Democrats are. And Democrat is the face of pure evil. Pure evil. And she believed or was willing to believe every word of that right up until January 7th.
Yep.
And then she decided, and at that point, once we had given away, not us, because we wouldn't do something that dumb, but once we collectively had given away all the media power to our Never Trump friends, they decided she was instantly redeemed. And anytime anybody brought up anything, she said, like, she had some differences with you over abortion. So what? Get over it.
Oh, wow.
No. That's not what she said. She said, and then they get on their high horse when, J.D. Vance says exactly the same thing. And Trump says exactly the same thing. Like, that Liz Cheney said exactly the thing that you want us all to forget she said, right? And that's when you get blocked because you're not supposed to remember any of that stuff. That is out of bounds. And
but Glass, I got to ask you something. I'm sorry.
Yes,
now we're just totally taking over your podcast. Martin.
Sorry, Blue Gal.
That's okay. I got some questions to throw at you guys too.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Eric Swalwell was on one of the Midas Touch podcasts this week.
Yeah.
And he said, you guys don't understand. Within the Congress, within the Senate and the House, we all they all want to joke with us and say, it's like professional wrestling. Our fans want us to fight. This is how Republicans approach Democrats in that. Our fans, and then Swalwell says, I actually call them constituents. But our fans, the people we text for money, want us to hate you and fight. And so we'll, just get along and go have drinks and go do this and do that. And then call you monsters on our texts and when we're in front of a microphone. And then he said, except for Marjorie Taylor Greene. He said, she will say, fuck you, Eric, to my face. And I find that refreshing because she's bought into the fact that she thinks MAGA is real. And for these congressmen, MAGA is not real. It's just a game. It's just a show.
You remember the cartoon dog and the cartoon coyote, I think it was, or whatever, that
the Roadrunner and the Coyote.
No,
Oh
This
yeah, when
is
they punch in, yeah.
yeah,
Hello,
they punch
Ralph.
and they fight, and they punch on their
Hello,
friends.
Ralph. Hello, Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
That's
Right.
that's how
Right.
they treat it. And this Sean Keith Olbermann, I
Oh
believe,
yeah.
says this about Sean Hannity years
Yeah.
ago, because
Yeah.
they're on some panel together and they're blah 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 blah. And Sean says, they really think we don't like each other because come on, it's only TV. It's only TV, and because it has no consequences for these people at all.
Yeah.
There are never
Yeah.
any consequences. And when the village burns down, they're 2 states away. They don't give a
Well,
shit.
and that's how he looks in the mirror in the morning and thinks he's still going to heaven
Right.
Yep.
because it's not bearing false witness. It's just reading a script.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It's just
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
Well, and then
Yeah.
you got Peggy Noonan coming out with this column
Oh God.
yeah.
saying, well, they're really all terrified of Trump.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
they're just going along because they're scared. But the crazy shit that he's doing, whether it's the hiring freeze, the foreign aid freeze, the tariffs that are going into effect, I guess, as
Today.
we speak.
Well, it looks like Canada's going to do a tariff on Tesla. So we'll
Good.
just see how long this stuff
I
lasts.
was
I think it's going to be
Yeah.
like the hiring freeze,
I was just up there 2 weeks ago. I have a transgender child who's also a U.S. Canada citizen. Though she she let me know a couple weeks ago that she's decided to let her U.S. passport expire due to
Hmm.
Trump's
Yeah.
nonsense around
Bullshit.
gender.
Yep.
But
Yep.
my girlfriend and I were up there for the kiddo's birthday. We had dinner with his mom, for that side of the family, and
Right.
I was talking to his uncle, and Canada's pissed. Canada's
Yeah.
pissed.
Really
Apparently,
pissed.
apparently the whole "Let's make Canada the 51st state"
Oh
may
yeah.
may have actually wind up saving the Liberals in what is
Hmm.
otherwise a
Hmm.
very bad year for Liberals,
Yep.
because they can outside of Alberta apparently, which is like, yay, we're like little MAGA.
We
The
love it.
the
Yeah.
rest of
Yeah.
the rest of the conservative, more conservative states in Canada, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, they
Hmm.
have literally that 51st state made them pivot from we're Canadian MAGA to what the hell? This is our
Yeah.
country. You
Right.
fuck off.
Right.
Sorry,
That
fuck off.
nationalism. Right.
Yeah,
And
Right.
so
Right.
nationalism still is nationalism.
it's still
It is.
nationalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still
Yep.
nationalism. I agree, but I'm hearing
Yep.
stuff like
Yep.
Doug Ford was talking early about shutting off the power. He's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll shut off the electricity, and
Hmm.
apparently he's making more noise about that. And
Is that the Toronto mayor? Is that who?
my
Yeah.
kid's uncle was saying that Hydro Quebec powers New York, New
Yeah.
Upstate
England,
New York. Yeah.
a good chunk of
Yeah.
Michigan, parts
Yeah.
of New York City, because that's all coming down. And he's like,
Hmm.
they're like, we'll shut off your power, eat
Hmm.
shit.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
I got off track. What was I saying?
you were
Uh,
talking about
Well, I was asking
well,
Driftless about whether the idea of this being a script rather than a
well, first of all, I'm delighted that Canada is now adopting 5440 or fight as its national motto, which is awesome.
I haven't heard that. What's that?
Oh, that's an old expression from the fight between the U.S. claiming Oregon territory up to the 5440 parallel, the north
parallel.
Ah,
latitude.
Right.
It was
Back
it
in
was
the
a
19th century. Right.
yeah
5440 your fight.
yeah.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
see, you guys don't ever forget anything. See?
Well, we forget the context of things sometimes, and that's why I have a little phone in my hand so I can look this stuff up.
There you go.
Yeah, no, I think that it is more true than that. It is, I think, right across the board, and this is nothing new or saying nothing new, that right across the board, pretty much almost everyone in legacy media and conservative media thinks of their job as acting.
Yep.
You
Yes.
take a script, you stand in front of the thing, you do the thing, and you do the role. And I always point to I point to a lot of people, but I point to Matthew Dowd, who does that.
Mhm.
Matthew Dowd, who has had the scales fall from his eyes like 17 times. You know, he's the architect of the bashing the gay campaign of George H.W. Bush, or George W. Bush in 2004. Proud of it, goes on in magazines saying, "Yeah, we found the pain points for people and we stuck it to them." And then when he parted with them, suddenly he's an independent, and then he's on ABC News as their guy saying, "I'm a third party. Hillary and Trump are both equally terrible, equally awful." You might know, he and I actually had a fight on Twitter in public. I'm saying, I'm a nobody.
Oh.
I'm some guy in the middle of a cornfield, and all I'm doing is telling you both sides do it is toxic bullshit, and you should stop doing it. And then he launched, he said, anybody who reads Driftglass must be stupid, must be wrong, don't believe in the truth. And I had people going, dude, don't you understand? And then, well, fast forward, Trump gets elected. Shit
Did
hits
the
the
scales
fan.
fall from his eyes again?
Not quite. He says, well, you got to understand, there's a difference between Trump supporters, who are a very small group and kind of harmless, and Trump voters, who are nice people. It took him about a year to get over that. And then he blocked everybody and deleted his entire Twitter account.
He deleted all of his tweets from before 2016.
Denies saying anything ever. I never said anything like that. Blocks anyone who brings the past up. And then he comes back thanks to Nicole Wallace, who is in the business of rehabilitating Steve Schmidt and Matthew Dowd. And he comes on and suddenly he is Mr. Where the heck is this both sides do it journalism coming from, man? This is toxic. This is dangerous. This is terrible things. Who's doing this sort of thing? And I'm like,
This is something that we actually wanted to talk about. That both Marty and I were talking about before
Sure.
when we were saying what do we want. No. And you guys did I forget if it was Driftglass or Blue Gal that put it out. It was the piece about the media mollusks, which is one of my favorite terms. I'm going to use it now. And you specifically named Saliza and Schmidt. And maybe you don't know this, but I have had it out for Chris Saliza since the bad bitch ad, the big bad bitch ad that he did with Milbank.
Yep.
Milbank is sort of redeemed himself a little bit, but I still hold it against him because I remember shit too.
Right.
But Saliza, if you go through the short amount of writings I have at Marty's blog and just Google my name and Chris Saliza, you'll find that it's like nothing but bile and rocks and bricks and dog shit hurled at that guy, because that's exactly what he is. He's like he's like a leech or like a parasite. Everything that man says is wrong. If Chris Saliza says it's raining, I'm looking out my front door just to make sure. If Chris Saliza says the sky is blue, I'm looking out my front door just to make sure. And yet he persists.
Yes.
He
in the club.
He persists like freaking herpes.
You know, we used to say that about Bill Kristol, that he was always wrong.
Yeah.
That the best way to figure out the correct thing was the opposite of whatever Bill Kristol said.
Yeah.
I guess he kind of broke that when he just came out hard against Trump, but that was true for a very long time about Bill Kristol.
oh, yeah.
The guys at Crooks and Liars, one of them says that of all the Never Trumpers, that Crystal's actually the best of the bunch, and the guy was like, I can't believe I'm saying this.
Well,
But why is he a mollusk? I don't understand the connection between mollusk and Chris Saliza.
you know,
What's that about?
just a bottom feeding, attaching itself to anything in movement. Just
Think of a barnacle.
yeah, barnacle. Except there is a Mike Barnacle, so we already have a barnacle.
He's a
Who's also
plagiarist.
useless.
He spoke in my college commencement.
Oh, wow.
My
Totally uninspiring. He basically said the world sucks. Don't bother.
in school.
Your
everything
degree's not
sucks.
worth shit.
Wait a minute.
That's basically what he said.
Wow. Wow.
Like, yeah,
All
thanks,
right.
dude.
Isn't this the commencement address from back to school? Isn't
Yeah.
Stay in school. Everything sucks. Make your parents pay for it. No, my
But we were talking. One of the things we were talking about to circle back is that here's one of the things that you mentioned, and this is the line. I absolutely love it. I'm looking at it right now. Because there is a mutual aid mentality among media mollusks like Saliza and Schmidt, and boldfaced among the dankest denizens of the present conservative media, and boldfaced among the conservative media outcasts like the Lincoln Lads and the Bulwark, which simply does not exist on the left. And that is something that has been driving me up the wall for years. The folks who have been right we don't get on the big media thing. They don't want us on CBS. They don't want us on ABC. They don't want us. But yet we are right. And one of the things that you also mentioned in that we endured years of being relentlessly mocked and slagged by the media. And not so subtly threatened and demonized by the right. And this went on until quite some time, until reality had its way. But one of the things that we did, and here it is, this is the line: if we are going to save ourselves, we must find a way to resurrect the same kind of unified, single-minded, very loud focus that liberal bloggers brought to bear during the W
Right, right.
administration. I was the host
Damn.
of one of the second host of Drinking Liberally
Yeah.
Philadelphia at that time. Philadelphia at that time was ground zero in many ways for the left-wing blogging community. We had, well, Atrios
Yeah.
lives here. Marty and I were still going on the regular. Susie Madrak from Suburban Gorilla.
Who's at Crooks and Liars now? Right,
Yeah.
right.
Chris
Yeah.
Chris Bowers from
Yeah,
IDD, and then
yep,
later Daily Coast.
yep.
We had a little salon, and that's where I actually met Brendan 20 years ago.
Yep.
Oh,
And but we'd all sit around and drink beers and go, did we invade Iraq for the oil or did we couldn't figure it out.
yeah.
We sat there for years trying to figure it out. But but we had a mutual support,
Right.
and it was important for our morale.
Mhm.
And it was important for cross pollination of, people would discover one of us, then they would discover another one of us, and then
Right.
all of that. And
And at some point, it actually kind of became the place to be. Mayor, the Michael Nutter, who was running for mayor, he came by to try to get us on his side. John Fetterman, when he was first running against Pat Toomey, when he was trying to jump from mayor of Braddock to U.S. Senate, which I always thought that was a bit of a jump. He came by. He came by and kissed our ass
Toomey
and
came
wanted
by
to.
and kissed our ass.
Who
Toomey,
did? Yeah,
Wow.
Toomey. No, Toomey didn't come by and kiss our ass. Toomey just happened to be hanging out at the bar that we were hanging
oh,
out
he
at,
just
and Up Your
strolled
Nose was like,
over.
"Hey, yeah, Up Your Nose came was like, guess who's downstairs?" And I was like, "Who?" He's like, "Your favorite person. It's Pat Toomey." I was like, "No shit." So I went down, and there's Pat Toomey. By the way, in a brewery, a craft brewery, and what's he drinking? Wine, moron. Moron, you're drinking cheap wine in a craft brewery.
Wow.
What the fuck is
Wow.
wrong with you? It's called beer,
Yeah.
dum dum. So yeah, so he and I had a conversation. Remember, I got that photo with him, me and old light bulb head standing next to each
Yeah.
other. But yeah, he like there were a bunch that came. Pat Toom, what's his name? The DA who's in jail right now, the Philly DA who's in jail, Seth, whatever his name is the big progressive DA who turned out to be a complete
Oh,
crook,
yeah,
who was
yeah.
stealing from his
Yeah, I
grandma.
can't even think of his name, but
And is now in jail. But yeah, but it became like, because I think we were amplifying each other. You had this group of people, mostly
Yep.
bloggers, and remember Will Bunch? Will Bunch used to
Yeah.
come by on the semi-regular
Yeah.
but
too.
there
You
was a
know,
certain point there where CNN was uh, promoting, what was said in the blogosphere
Yep.
today.
That's right.
Right.
Stuff.
Right.
And so we would get some of our people get on there, and then there was one thing where it was in the Philly Weekly, they were talking about someone had spotted Atrios jogging. Remember that? And we were like, oh
Counting
man,
the steps as he
we've
goes. Yes.
arrived.
Hey,
We've
Atrios,
arrived.
Duncan Black showed up on The West Wing, right? There was a
Yeah.
name
That's right.
drop.
it wasn't him. It was someone
Yeah,
playing him. I
No,
don't think he
but
was
I
actually
think they
on.
used his
dropped him.
name. Yeah, they
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, dude, that's. But let me, for the new listeners out there, let me recapitulate this conversation in terms of how you were hearing it. Back in the old days, we used to have a thing called blogs, and they were glorious. And now it's all no. The spirit is still there. I mean,
We had to write our own HTML tags. God damn it! It's a torture you've never
you know
known.
what Halloscan was? It was hell. I tell you, hell.
Blogger was always
We once
going
thought
down.
Discus was good.
But I mean the first Co's convention I went to, when it went over to Netroots, I think, was in Chicago.
Yeah,
For
I was
the
there.
election.
I was there.
Oh, I was there too, man. Because I had to be, because I'm, I was in Chicago, and
Yeah.
everybody showed up. All the candidates except one showed up, and they all had breakout sessions. I still have film of Barack Obama's breakout session somewhere, and they all stood on stage and answered questions. And there was global media there. They courted us because we were the new thing.
Yep.
And
Right. Right.
I remember
and the
that.
problem, well, I would say the problem was that Obama won. I'm glad he did, consider the alternative. But the problem was that suddenly the media stopped being afraid of us. I mean, I've told the story before, and I'm just ripping it off from the New York Times. David Brooks lost his fucking mind when
I remember him losing his
Ned
mind
Lamont
like that.
won. And
Oh,
he
yeah.
wrote this tirade in the paper, mild mannered, pink tie, aw shucks, David Brooks wrote this tirade about the blogs and how the blogs were ruining them. The blogs were the moral equivalent of Tom DeLay. We were the Shia and Sunni. We were destroying America. And in that moment, you saw the birth of the contemporary both sides do it movement, which is it's always both sides, and it carries through to today. It's true to because once they lost the Iraq argument and Katrina and the global economy, you couldn't say that we were wrong. So the only thing
They were so mad about losing the Iraq argument. The other ones they could take, but Iraq broke their freaking
absolutely
brains.
did. And so the only alternative was for the media to say both sides got it wrong. Both sides are wrong. Both sides are always wrong about everything. And David Brooks is the king of that. And for almost the entire Republican Party to put on funny hats and call themselves Tea Party and say, I never had anything to do with that. I don't know what you're talking about. And the media let them fucking get away with it. That's when I knew we were real trouble.
All right, but guys, I'm
Yes,
going to talk to you. I'm going to talk to the sausage factory here for a minute. we had a few traitors in our ranks.
Yes, we did.
Sure did. We got some people I got problems with now.
And the other thing I think we have to ask ourselves is how much legitimacy do we want from
All of it.
those
I want
people?
all of it.
From
from
those
those
people.
Oh, no. Yeah. No.
Do you want to be on Nicole Wallace's show? Yeah, but you would go on one time. Drift Class would go on one time. And it would be like the Doors on Ed Sullivan, right?
Yeah.
I've done it. I've been on Ed Sullivan.
I burned it down, and now I'm done. Yeah.
I burned down.
To be honest, I do want a degree of legitimacy for a number of reasons. Number one, we were fucking right, and I'm tired of seeing people who are fucking wrong setting the frame. And there actually does need to be a both sides. We don't have a both sides now. We have a conservative side and we have a both sides do it now. We don't have a left side. And I absolutely do want that kind of legitimacy because I'm tired of being ignored.
Yep.
And especially because the choices that our country is making are fundamentally stupid choices that are putting my retirement in jeopardy. And have already cost me American visits stateside with my kid, and they're already coming after the kids I teach because now I gotta, besides being told I gotta jump in front of a bullet if a school shooter comes, at the same time I have to be willing to stand in front of ICE and tell them to fuck off.
Right.
So yeah, I do want a little bit of legitimacy there. I would like to be on Nicole Wallace's show so she could have to listen to me and be like, oh yeah, actually, Mr. Squire, you're kind of making a point there, and I would like to, in fact, you were talking about a couple traitors, and we were talking about Toomey just a second ago. I do want to get back to the point where our senators on the left are listening to us. And I live in Pennsylvania. John Fetterman owes us an explanation. He hasn't had a town hall since he's been elected. He hasn't come back to talk to the voters. I call his office on the regular. One of his staff admitted that he hasn't had a town hall. And this is one of these people that's bought into that both sides do it shit.
Well, he's decided he's going to be the new he's going to be, Kristen Sinema. He's decided that he's going to do that.
I don't think he's really gotten there quite yet because he's still saying that he's like, I'm there for Medicaid. He's like, I'm there for Union Way of Life. I'm there for LGBT kids. But he has to be held to that. And he does not have very strong voices on the left right now holding him to that.
He's one of those guys who got fed up with people on the left yelling at him and just said, fuck you all.
Right.
And that is always a risk.
Yeah.
But he just watched Casey lose. And I got to tell you,
there's also that
it was unthinkable for a Casey to lose in this state for a very long time. And I didn't take it seriously even this time. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I knew Biden could lose.
Yeah.
I saw the polls that showed Casey vulnerable, but going all the way back to his dad and the whole, it's that pro-life wing of the party. He had a lot of support from the pro-life community, and it's gone. It's like it evaporated. It was partly because he moderated his positions.
Yeah. Well, after Roe, a lot of people did. Yeah.
It's one of the reasons that I actually came to appreciate Bob Casey.
Well, his first vote he became a senator, and one of his first votes was to deny funding for stem cells, and just backing up his promises to the pro-life community.
I remember that.
And I was like, see, I told you, like, this guy is not who we want as our senator. But after that, he started moderating and he became like a really strong vote on most things. And
Sandy Hook really changed him.
oh,
He was very much a strong gun guy. Sandy Hook changed him, and he was like, well, and he started listening and changing a lot. Like, he's still pro-life. He's actually still personally pro-life, but
That's anti-choice. Yes.
the line that he's been using is that he supports, what he was using for years was he supports Planned Parenthood because they prevent more, by their services, they prevent more abortions than they facilitate.
yeah. But once you go down that road, you're kind of just saying, I'm not even trying to keep the pro-life vote. You know what I'm saying?
For them. And it's not pro-life, it's anti-choice,
for them.
by the way.
Yeah.
That's true. It's anti-choice.
I want to just get back one second to this legitimacy thing, because the way that right-wing media gets legitimacy and continue, their excuse every time is look at our ratings.
Right.
Yeah.
Look at our ratings. We get and I call it, the crotch couch. You can smell the underwear on Fox when they're sitting on that white couch in their hooker pumps, 6-inch heels, and 5-inch skirts. That's what it is. And we've made this joke on the Professional Left podcast of what we need is strippers reading Tom Hartman columns. Just and you saw this in that movie on the bubble about the woman in the it was the actress who played Barbie in a bubble bath talking to you about
The Big Short.
The Big Short. That was it. Yeah. And she's sitting in a bubble bath with champagne saying, okay, now I'm going to explain economics to you. And now I'm done explaining economics to you. Fuck off. I'm going to take my bubble bath. And it's like, that's the attention window that the critical mass of voters who, whether they'll show up or not, what lost the Senate election for Bob Casey? Targeted ads about trans kids.
Yeah. They ran that like hell in Philadelphia. It was unbelievable.
Paid for by Elon Musk.
Well, listen, one thing that I heard on your last podcast was this thing about Richard III and carrying the banner.
Yes.
And that's another example of never forgetting stuff, because that happened in, I don't know, the 12th century.
That's correct.
But what I liked about this story was that he was on a crusade and he had a very tall banner.
Yes.
And they were besieged on three sides. But the banner, they could see as long as that was up that the king was alive and still moving, and that gave them the courage they needed to take the slings and arrows. And I think that's partly it's partly thinking you need people out there like us who will put up the fight, even if we're not persuading anybody necessarily.
Right.
And the other thing, though, kind of gets back to the original blogosphere, which is no one came to save us on Iraq. The media didn't come. Right. The party didn't come.
We saved ourselves.
Right? Yeah. We did it.
Yeah.
We did. Ordinary people from the cornfields and the city corners. We found each other. We organized. We supported each other. And we had our heyday. Yeah. And that's over now. The blogging era is over. But here we are. We're trying to do progressive podcasting. And, there's some people out there, Bob Seska and Cliff Schechter and Brad Friedman. I've done Brad Friedman's radio show 1 or 2 times, but a long time ago. But your show, which is, how many of you done? Like 500 and something?
Oh, no.
700?
873 was our last one.
That is a crazy number.
15
years.
That is
crazy.
Yeah,
15
years.
You guys should be on Sirius by now. you know.
Yeah, for real.
But you're so good at what you do, and you know, there's no sugar daddy out there helping
Nope.
you out.
Nope.
No. Nope.
You know,
Well, and
No.
I mean, when I was in Chicago, this is related to the question, which is whether progressive radio. I was in Chicago. I mean, this Chicago at the time, I think it was the third largest media market in the country.
Yep.
It's a big market, big blue city, lots of people. There was one progressive radio station, and on that one progressive radio station, there was one local program, locally produced program. Everything else was syndicated from the coast, which is fine. But it was Tom Hartman and Air America and Stephanie Miller,
right?
which is fine. And I had to walk around my condo with my radio to try to catch the signal because it was so weak coming, even though it was rebroadcast in Chicago. There is this real lack of cohesion in the communication strategy of the left because there is no strategy. We're
There's
all
no
out here on our
strategy.
own, sort of doing what we can. And honest to God, all the pieces are there. That's what drives me crazy. This is not a insolvable problem. This is every component we would need for a liberal media, a liberal megaphone, exists already. We have really good speakers, really smart people who talk like normal human beings, like we're doing right now. We can talk to people, we can
Yep.
communicate, and who remember stuff and who can persuade people who are persuadable. There is simply no infrastructure on which we can stand to do that. So, we have to build our own. We have to do exactly what you're doing now, which is support each other.
Yeah.
And we have to, honestly, this is a leap of faith. I know our atheist listeners do not like the idea of leap of faith, but let's just call it the inexorable turn of history. We have to hope that reality, just like in Iraq, reality at some point becomes so undeniable that it breaks the people who are trying to lie about it every day. Or
And
enough
that's happening
of them,
at turbo speed at this point.
right.
Yeah.
With
Oh,
all
it
the rake,
absolutely is.
rake
People are
stepping.
learning that their checks aren't. All of a sudden, people really are learning that their Social Security checks
Yeah,
aren't
right.
coming.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they really are.
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, it's almost like God bless them for fucking
Yeah.
doing this, because
Right.
every other shutdown we've had, it's like,
Right.
we're having a shutdown, but
Don't-
but that means you can't go to the
Right.
park
Don't
today.
worry,
Well, and
everything's fine.
Don't worry, your checks are going to come. You'll be able to go to the doctor, but you can't go to the Grand Canyon, and there's a line at the DMV.
I had a story I've
Yes,
told
for
several
people-
times about a roommate I had right after college who didn't want to talk to me about politics. I don't like politics. I don't talk about politics. I'm never going to do that. I'm not interested. I just like to ride my bike and enjoy nature. And then the government shut down.
Mhm.
And she couldn't call the National Weather Service to find out if it was going to be okay for her to ride her bike that morning.
Ooh,
What?
Oopsie.
Yeah.
Politics found her.
yeah.
It
You know
always
what's
does,
going to
doesn't it?
find people is they are. We had Mark Steer, who's what is it called? The Pennsylvania Policy Institute. I forget the name of his
Pennsylvania Policy
Policy
Center.
Center.
He's a political scientist over at Temple, professor of political science at Temple. He was the director of Healthcare for America Now, the Obamacare lobbying group.
Great guy.
Sorry to interrupt.
And we had him on as a guest a few weeks ago. And his big thing that they're working on now is fighting these Medicaid cuts.
Yep.
But I've done the numbers. That's my kind of specialty is procedure in Congress and I do a lot of pieces on reconciliation and like how it works and why it's actually one of the biggest opportunities the Democrats have to succeed is but without getting off on that they are going to have to try to pay for these tax cuts and everything else with Medicaid cuts, which are going to hit people, including their subsidies for healthcare insurance.
Yep.
And they're going to try to do this. They really have no other pool of money that they can do. You cannot touch Social Security and reconciliation. It's against the rules. And touching Medicare is something Trump's promised not to do and is incredibly unpopular. But the thing is, Medicaid is surprisingly popular when you poll it, and it's one of those weird things that have surprised me. It doesn't surprise me that people support raising the minimum wage, but it does surprise me a little bit that people are so supportive of Medicaid because it seems like, oh, you're giving money to poor people who don't necessarily deserve it. It seems like maybe it's not that popular, but it actually is popular. People don't want.
63%.
Yeah.
63% of people in nursing homes are entirely dependent on Medicaid to
Yeah.
keep a
Yep.
roof over their head and their linens clean.
Mm-hmm.
So it might not be the third rail that Social Security is, but it's not that far
As
behind.
soon as you point that out,
Like what?
Yeah.
no, you're going
What?
to have grandma come home and live with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
what's going to happen.
You're gonna have grandma in the
And,
attic. How do you like
and,
that?
and mom's going to have to quit her job because she's going to have to be home taking care of grandma.
Well, and a big chunk of
Because
the,
grandma
that six,
needs that level of care.
a
Yeah.
big chunk of that 63% are people arranging their finances so that grandma would qualify to go to.
Oh, absolutely. But you have to do
Yep.
that. You
I
have
know
to do
people
that 5 years ahead, Driftglass.
Right, exactly.
So it's a
I know
lot of
people who are.
planning. Yeah.
I know people who are dealing with the five-year look back
Yep.
right now. Buddy of
Yep,
mine, his
yep.
dad is.
Yep.
Two friends of mine, their parents are in decline from various forms of
Yep,
dementia,
yep.
and they're doing that 5-year look back. One of my friends just got past it and was lucky enough to save their
Yeah.
property.
You've got to transfer it when you're healthy.
And you push
Yep.
Medicaid even a little bit, and all of that falls apart.
We do got to start wrapping it up pretty soon because Drift Glass has to get running. There were two things that I wanted to hit just before not hit like that. Don't throw punches at me, my friend. I saw you throwing video punches over the Zoom. Not my fault. Let's hey. So a couple things, and I don't want to go too far on it, but we were just talking about mutual aid societies and making sure we're supporting each other and stuff like that. I think what we're all thinking, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, is I think we all see the same kind of opportunity that the blogosphere took advantage of with the as legacy media, print media, didn't stop telling the truth to people, and more people were like, "What's going on with Iraq? This isn't so good. Wait a minute, maybe we should listen to these alternate voices." I think we have a large opportunity to do that with podcasting. I mean, I know I forget her name, but the woman that does Mueller, she wrote.
Right.
She's mentioned a couple times that she's getting bigger audiences than some of Fox's podcasts, which is great. And I think all of us can be doing the same thing. And I think an important thing that we all have to think about moving forward is making sure we're having folks on like you.
Thank you.
And having guest appearances, and promoting our own stuff on other people's shows.
Right.
Like, hey, you guys got something to say? Come on, because this is what we're doing here. You're gonna get some of our traffic. You probably have more traffic than
for
we
sure.
do. You're gonna get benefit from us. We're gonna benefit from you, and it's like it's like, oh, hey, there's this whole up. My friend Tim, I got a friend in Chicago who just moved there. About 2 years ago, and he's listening to you now because he heard about you guys on
good.
us.
Good.
Yeah.
Great.
Hi, Tim.
So it's like, oh, those guys are great, and he's so excited to have you. That he's so excited for this podcast. So we got to keep all of us.
It's like a podcast roll, like the old blog
I think
roll.
it is. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, it's like a podcast
Yeah.
roll. You should be listening. Check out this person. Check out this person. Hey, we're having this person on. Hey, we're having this person on. All of us, and I'm talking. I'm not just talking about the four of us. I mean, like, the Oliver
Right.
Willises, the Muellers,
Right.
the Schechters. All we got. I'm sorry he pushed you
Well,
off. By the way, I hope
Purely
you
not
keep
his
coming
fault.
back.
It was purely scheduling.
This is podcasting, baby. This is how podcasting works.
Yeah.
Not
I'm a
his
big
fault.
fan
Yeah.
of Cliff. So
Yeah.
The other thing, and the other thing we absolutely wanted to get to, and we got so bogged down in politics, is the knitting podcast because Mrs. Cabin Girl, Mrs. Marty is absolutely into knitting, and a bunch of my friend Amy is into knitting, and I can name at least 3 or 4 other people I know who would absolutely want to know about the podcast.
We are knitting
and anything
for the
else with the knitting
resistance.
thing.
It's just 20 minutes of me talking about my knitting and how we can manage our yarn stashes and all that good stuff. It's just called Blue Gal's Knitting Podcast on YouTube, and it's
That's
once
awesome.
a week.
And you have a new fan, don't you, Blue Gal?
Oh
Yes.
yeah, I was reposted on Blue Sky by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez,
oh,
who has
I
learned
saw
to
that.
knit. She is learning to knit, people.
She's putting up
Yeah,
photos. That's
yeah.
great.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's
I'm still
so
floating a
awesome.
little bit above the ground over that.
Yeah, I bet.
I
I
gotta
bet. Yeah, Brendan does that sometimes.
Um,
He'll say, "Oh, look who retweeted me."
Yeah.
It can be pretty exciting.
We do Why,
Yeah.
look who blocked me, Blue Gal. Hey, look
Oh
at
yeah,
that.
that's what we do. Oh look, I got blocked by another never Trumper.
Hey, Tom Nichols still hates me. That's cool.
He still
Yeah.
hates me. Good for him.
Oh,
I haven't gotten blocked by Tom Nichols yet, but I'm pretty sure I got blocked by him on Twitter.
The latest one was yesterday. Harry Dunn, the former cop from the J6.
really?
He followed me yesterday.
Oh, he followed you. He didn't block you. I was going to
He
say,
didn't
what'd you do
block
to
me.
him?
He
What'd you
followed
do to
me. He followed me yesterday.
I was retweeted and followed by Dean
Dala? Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Dala? Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
he's on Salon. There's a couple of Salon people that are following me
Nice.
now and that have retweeted me, and it's like, oh, hey, I said something interesting to them.
Good.
So
So where
awesome.
are you on Blue Sky,
And-
Brendan? Are you
I am probably Brendan. It's probably Brendan Calling.
Okay.
Brendan calling.
That's how I am. That's how I am usually on
socials?
on the
Okay.
internet.
I know we have
Yeah,
to
on the
wrap up, but
socials.
I just did briefly want to say that Brendan's main contribution to the history of the blogosphere was he's called Brendan Calling because he would call Congress people and then he would either, you normally didn't record it, right? Or
I didn't record it. I
but
would
he
just
would
transcribe it.
these conversations and he'd call Santorum and
That was my
Arlen
best one.
Specter
Oh, wow.
relentlessly
Wow.
so that their staffers were like,
the
oh
one-
no, it's this dude again.
It's Brendan calling.
The one I did with there were two really great Brendan Callings I did, and I know we got to wrap it up. One was when Santorum went on TV and said that same-sex sexual relations were no different than man on
Yes.
dog
Yeah.
sexual relations, and then he got a backlash, and then he stepped back and said anything that's not penis vagina sex is anything out
abomination,
of
whatever.
penis
Yeah.
vagina sex is an
Yeah.
abomination. So I called his office and I was like, hey, my gal and I like to do it up the back door every once in a while. Does that make us gay? I was like, I'm trying to figure out if I'm gay or
Oh
not.
my God, it went
I'm
on
not
and on.
sure. And I went on
Great
and on
detail.
and on.
Great detail.
Like
Yeah.
into the details that nobody wants to hear about, and the guy on the other end was just like,
Suffering through it.
I don't know what to do.
Hey,
I don't know
your
what to
boss
do.
is the final authority on this. I gotta know.
I
You know,
gotta know.
Yeah, I know. He's the final authority. He knows.
And
Yeah,
he
his
knows.
name
you had
is synonymous with Dirty Lou.
Exactly.
You had
Dirty
balls of
Lou.
steel back then,
The-
Brendan. You just say
I did.
anything.
The other one I did, and which actually was a good Brendan Calling, a friend of ours and fellow blogger who was trying to adopt a child from Kazakhstan at the time, and was getting the runaround from the Kazakh government, and which was being at the time was even more of a puppet of the Russian government. And they had been going back and forth to Kazakhstan for years and trying to get this done, and the Kazakh government just kept messing with them. And I placed a call to Bob Casey's constituent services offices, and at that time Bob Casey was on the wrong side of a lot of stuff, so he was also getting calls from me constantly asking ridiculous questions. And I was like, hey, listen, it's the guy that calls all the time. I know I'm a pain in the ass. My heart's in the right place. This is what's going on with a friend of mine. Here is his number. Please give him a call. This is not nonsense. This is serious. Give me a call if you have any questions. And like 5 days later, my buddy calls me up. And he's like, why is Bob Casey calling my phone number and offering to help?
Oh,
And Bob Casey, to his credit, jumped in, and my buddy got his
that's
adoption done.
wonderful. That's
That was
wonderful.
That's-
They do listen. They really
Yeah.
do listen. You get
Yeah.
through to them. They really
When
do.
you give them, when you press them enough, they start listening.
Way to
They
go,
start
man.
listening.
We used to have influence. We used to have.
Back in the day, I was somebody. Now I'm just a palooka.
But Martin's right. If enough constituents keep calling you,
Mhm.
and that's why this spending freeze lasted a day.
Yep.
It's because governors called senators governors called senators because constituents were calling governors and saying,
Yeah.
Yep.
are my food stamps going to not come on February 1st? Because I
Yep.
can't feed my
Yep.
kids, so how do I do it?
Exactly.
All right. Let's do the Patreon. Because we would like some financial support from our listeners.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
On that, there you go. On that glorious note, hungry children, people losing their health care and calling their governor saying, why, why? We'd like to say that this has been the 21st episode of the Progress Pondcast, Season 2, Episode 2. We are so happy to have had our guests, Blue Gal and Drift Glass from the Professional Left podcast. You know how you support us? Go to patreon.com. For Professional Left, you're going to go to patreon.com/pro left pod, all one word, lowercase letters. If you want to support Progress Pondcast, you'll go to patreon.com/Progress Pondcast. Actually, I think is it Pondcast or Podcast over at Patreon? I think it might be misspelled. Either way, no, it is. It's Progress Pondcast. Don't forget the N because we're like frogs that live in a pond. Let's see. Our intro music and our outro music is, as always, provided by the Royal Hounds from Nashville, Tennessee. And as a matter of fact, I think their bass player / singer is going to be coming on the podcast in another couple of weeks. If you like what you're hearing, please find us on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, all the other places where they have podcasts and stuff like that. Give us a like, give us a share. And please drop by our Patreon to support us. Am I missing anything, Marty?
No, I think you got it covered.
Awesome. Folks, we will see you next time. Please tune into the podcast of your choice. Please check out Pro Left Podcast. Please call your senator, governor, or state representative if things are happening to you because of the Trump administration. The more of us call and make a noise, the more we are going to get some kind of reaction to our noise making. We got to make this happen. No one's coming to save us, folks. We got to save ourselves. On that note, we will see you next time on the internet.
Over and out, folks.
And I'll next time I'll do my deep dive into Babylon 5. How's that?
Oh,
all right, but you might get countered with like vintage Doctor Who.
Oh,
fair.
Gotta get
That's
middle
fair.
style down there.
Who is your Doctor Who?
Mine was Tom Baker.
Thank you.
And
See?
when they changed, I was a kid when they changed over to Peter Davison.